I am delighted to host and moderate the following panel with, as you said, Ryan, an eclectic panel of cigar manufacturers, brand owners, and tobacco men who all have a long and storied history with particular ties in the international markets or their own roots firmly in Europe and beyond. And I think this is what today's summit in general is all about. It's that international scope. It's the connection between people all around the world who share the same love and passion for tobacco and premium cigars. And with this panel right now, we want to also look beyond just the regulatory aspects, but speak about the current developments in the US and the international markets, the dynamics and how different mechanics influence those international markets. And we also want to speak with our panelists about the roots of the premium cigar industry and the importance of international heritage and roots and the core foundation of this industry that we all love and care about so much. So without further ado, Ryan, if you would do me the honor, please, of welcoming our panelists, I would love to hand the microphone back to you and then welcome the gentlemen here on the panel.
First up, we will bring in Mr. Christian Arroyo.
As you can see, I'm on the road again. I'm actually going on my way to see Jeff Borchwitz. He was just mentioned in the last segment.
I'm also going to bring in Mr. Philip Wayne.
Hello, greetings. I wanted to thank the PCA and Reinhardt for holding this panel. I think it's great. The more information and communications we can give to our community, which is a community, a lifestyle community, the more we become part of a greater group, and we can all promote our knowledge and the knowledge of what the retailers and the consumers want. So I'm very happy to be involved in this.
Thank you, Philip. Next up, we're bringing in Mr. Jeremiah Meerfeld. Jeremiah, welcome to the panel.
Gentlemen, good afternoon to all of you. It's nice to see everybody.
And thank you so much for joining us. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Fred Vandemilier.
Hello, Fred, good afternoon, everyone. Hello from Belgium.
All right, Reinhard, take it away. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Ryan, many thanks for the kind words and the kind introduction. What I find particularly interesting and inspiring about today's panel, dear gentlemen, and thank you for joining us, is that many of you share strong roots and a core foundation in Europe. And we can and will discuss the impact of the European essence and culture that the premium cigar industry and the tobacco industry has cherished over the centuries and decades. And also what you all have in common is that for your respective brands and companies, you have very early on understood the importance of the international markets and establishing a strong footprint in global markets, looking beyond the United States, which undoubtedly and unquestionably is the biggest and most important market for premium cigars. But you have seen the writing on the wall, and you have clearly seen that there is a dynamic happening, and that the international markets, Europe, the Middle East, Southeast Asia, Africa, are quintessentially important for the future and the continued success of the premium cigar industry. Philip Wynn, I would love to start with you, and I would like to ask you to give us a little bit of an understanding of how you initially got in contact with tobacco and the cigar world, which, as I know, is firmly rooted in old Europe, and that's where you actually discovered your love and passion for this industry. How has that impacted the way you look at the industry and how you eventually set up your business once you ventured into the cigar and tobacco world?
Thank you, Reinhard. Well, in my particular case, I combine a lot of what you say because I am an American of uh, European background. My father was an American diplomat, and I grew up in Europe. And my first experience with cigars, he was at the U.S. Embassy in Geneva, was smoking a cigar at a Davidoff shop with Zeno. When I was 14 years old, I actually walked in and got my first cigar from him. So that would be another story. But I mean, what happened is that I had a love right away for this amazing world that I saw as a child that had colors, aromas, and images of faraway places, and it brought it all together to me, and it stayed in the back of my mind. And after I went through university and I started working, and I looked to do various things. In 1990, 33 years ago, I started my cigar business in Honduras, and I brought with me that love of the tobacco world, of the cigars. And my first experience was with Cuban cigars, so my palate was a more in tune with the Cuban type cigar. While in the United States at that point, which we're talking the early 1990s, the market was a very mild cigar. It wasn't very strong or full bodied at that point, mainly Connecticut shade wrapper, some Candela, and so I butted heads because I brought in my cigars that were full bodied. And actually, Christian, that's on the panel, his father helped me with my first production of Felipe Gregorio in, I think, 1992. And he was making a cigar called San Luis Rey. This is Julio Eiroa, a master in his field. And I wanted my Felipe Gregorio to emulate those full bodied lines. And I think that was the first full bodied cigar actually available in the United States at the time. But since then, I've seen the market fluctuated between full, mild, and obviously the ring gauges, and now we have the emergence of the Oriental market, the Chinese market, which is driving the prices of cigars up all over the world, and it's also driving the different taste profiles of availability that we have. That in that point, we also have the cigar ring gauges that which have grown throughout the years, have widened, have gone from a classic Corona to now that we have 60 ring gauges. So all of these are things that are dynamic, and that are continuously changing. I'd like to mention our panelists. I would like to the people that are on the other end of this show. Look at our panelists as basically as Michelin starred chefs. Each one of us here are working with products that we all know with tobacco, and we're creating our own identity. We're creating a true masterpiece in what we believe as cigars should be. We all have our different concepts, and we all have our different ties to it, but we are using the common passion and knowledge that we have acquired through the age to promote the best possible product for the consumer to smoke.
Thank you very much, Philip. Wonderful opening statement. Glenn Loop on the previous panel just mentioned the historical implications and importance, the long tradition of tobacco and the cigar world. And I believe there's very few families in the world that have such a long and storied history in tobacco and cigars like the Maripel family, coming from European descent and changing and shaping the pathways of the industry throughout the centuries in various different regions and countries of the world. Jeremiah, please share with us your perspective regarding the importance of the roots of the premium cigar and the tobacco world in old Europe and beyond, and how it still transcends into today's market and the dynamics that we currently see.
I believe that behind everything, there's a fundamental and underlying truth. Time and trends move away, back and forth from these truths, but ultimately, the base of a product is a base of a product. And we see this in every industry. We see industries shifting for a certain time, But at the end of the day, the underlying truth, the fundamentals of a product, God willing, remain the same. I think the cigar industry is no different from that. I think that you have certain components and values that define what a premium cigar is. And then you have time, which acts as an accordion and brings certain features out and then back in towards fundamentally what it originally is. And as Philip was saying, we do have changes. We have seen major changes in the last 10, 15, 20 years. We've seen massive ring gauges. We've seen tobaccos that should never be used on a cigar being used on a cigar. We've seen a lot of things happen. But fundamentally, the premium cigar sector, in terms of what it should be, anybody which is sitting on this panel or any cigar aficionado in his right mind, so to speak, knows what the underlying truths and values of a premium cigar are and should be. And therefore, you can look at it from two angles. And I'll try to change the conversation a little bit from what Philip was talking about, which are the markets. And let's look at it in a different angle. There is a certain responsibility for every single one of us to maintain that flame lit, to maintain what we know to be, what we may move away from at certain periods of time, or we might divert from it because that's what the market is asking for. But ultimately speaking, we still remain with a certain lit flame where we keep it in existence and we're able to go back to it. If we do this, we're able to bring throughout the generations and maintain life in the excellence of where we came from and where we're going. We can go back to how things were done and how we're maintaining them to be done. And we're able to keep the knowledge, the know-how, and the quality of certain raw materials, and the quality of certain ways of fabrication and certain knowledges alive. This is probably a controversial statement, or at least not one which is going to rub everybody in the right way, but one which I believe that anybody with a little bit of knowledge and history will agree to. We don't want to find ourselves in the position that the vast majority of the clothing industry ended up, or the vast majority of the watch industry at a certain point ended up, or the vast majority of the food industry is pointing in. We want to make sure that we keep certain things there. Now, how does that relate to your question? In order to reinvent the future, or in order to evolve in the future, we need to make it evolve in a constructive way, not in a destructive way. And cigars is a very complex, very simple, and very complex matter, because in effect, it's a very simple product, but which is very difficult to put together. It's simple because it's just tobacco. It's complex because that just tobacco is insanely difficult to grow, insanely difficult to source, insanely difficult to handle, insanely difficult to age, and everything's very complicated about it. And so as long as we keep certain of the traditions which are essential in maintaining the last 100, 200, 300 years of know-how and knowledge that we've brought up to a certain level, as long as we're able to continue doing that in a certain respect and not cut corners and reinventing in a way where we're adding value to the industry or to the products, rather than taking out value to be able to become more profitable or more of an efficient environment or industry, then I believe that we have something to leave to the next generations.
Fred, like the Maripel family, you have an inspiring and long family tradition behind you as well. You also come from a European background. You have established an incredible operation in Nicaragua, changing the lives of many, many people there for the better. And at the same time, you still keep and constantly evolve your global footprint with Oliva cigars and with everything that you do. How do you look at the current market dynamics and the evolution of your home market, the United States of America, being the heavyweight in terms of market size and market value, and then all these other countries and regions around the world where handmade premium cigars are gaining incredible population and become part of a lifestyle and gain back their position as an integral and important part of everyday's life and people enjoyment?
What a question. Reinhard is known for posing professional questions that that have a lot of answers in them. First of all, I didn't say it at the beginning. My intro was maybe too short, but thanks for having me, and great to see so many friends around the table here today. Look, I love to look into it in historical terms. You know, I mean, we can see the U.S. now as it is, numbers wise, as the biggest market in the world. But if you look to the world market 100 years ago, it was different. And if you look into the world market 200 years ago, it was different. When I was thinking to continue the business that my grandfather started, so if I look around the table, we're still a very young family in the tobacco business. We're only 100 years old. But if I let's say went to that to how you were thinking about it, it's in a certain way it's an honor to be able to continue the business that your grandparents started. At the other hand, you have to think about it like, is it smart? Is this the thing that I have to do? And will I put energy in something that has a future? I mean, will it really bring value not only to our family, but to all the families that work with us, and to everybody that works with us? And I think for me the basic question is like, will people enjoy tobacco in 100 years from now? Well, if I look to the market, then I would say, like, I think combustible tobacco will still be enjoyed in the form of a premium cigar. 100 years from now, I do think that the amount of tobacco that will be lit and with fired and with real smoke coming out will be, I mean, limited maybe to the market where it all started with 300-400 years ago. And it was that belief where I thought, like, okay, I mean, we're active in an industry that 100 years from now will still exist. That convinced me to do what I wanted to do, but that also convinced me to go in the direction that we in our family tend to go. Let's say it that way. So it's all a long-term journey, like Jeremiah said. I mean, it's all about I mean, how the history is about two extremes, and it always bends in between. And now you could say, like, yeah, I mean, the US, and that's true. And I think it's an important market. But if I look 100 years from now, I mean, maybe it will not be the US anymore. And that's why I think also that international markets are important to actually be active in. You don't have to exaggerate. I mean, I think losing money is not an option because otherwise it's not sustainable for nobody. Nobody is happy with that. But if you see that on a long-term view, I think it can help you maybe for the next generation to at least have a name or something in place that still exists. But then for sure, I mean, I think that the basics of it is that the things that we learned in the last 200 years, indeed, that we continue to make sure that they are there, and that these basics are included in whatever we do day to day. So I think the product has to be good. I think the market can be there, but where it will be, we don't know. And you have a kind of short-term view, which is the kind of business view, and you have a long-term view, which is the family view. and I think that's also why I think that also the families around the table here see these things on a long term and do the things in the right way.
A wonderful statement, Fred, and thank you very much for those opening remarks. Christian, on the one hand, your family has truly changed the perception of cigar enthusiasts globally about Honduran tobacco and cigars. You are firmly rooted in family history and tradition. At the same time, I know how incredibly inventive you are, how forward thinking you have always been with your businesses, taking into consideration aspects of sustainability and how can we build momentum, how can we build techniques, strategies for the future to continue what our forefathers have laid the foundation for. In the same regard, you have been very active in the international markets, looking beyond the United States at a very early stage of your brand, and you've done so very successfully and thus created a strong footprint in the international markets. What was the inspiration for that in the first place, and when did that realization come to you that the international markets are just as crucially important and something to look into and heavily invest into, much like the American market and the United States?
Hey, thank you very much thank you for the question. Thank you for organizing the panel. Very happy and honored to be surrounded by these people. Philip, I've known for 100 years. Jeremiah, I've met a couple of times. Fred, I met and I truly enjoy meeting. And listen, our life was a little strange the way we grew up. We grew up between Honduras, Tampa, and then in the summers I would spend my summers in France. And from that time, my father was in an airplane accident in '77. He became paralyzed. So I learned from him what is to observe, understand, and get creative, and figure out solutions to certain issues, certain problems. And innovation was always the main thing that kept me understanding how to solve problems. For example, when he developed the Corojo seed, when he reintroduced the Corojo seed that Cuba had retired 10 years after Cuba retired it, I couldn't get any coverage, so the solution was to start doing trip, and we really were the first one to open up a factory to trade. And when this new company came out, I needed to stand out, so we kept the 7 ring gauge. Great people, great transaction, but the new management team came out, and who released 1 or 2 key people that we figured, okay, listen, we don't do anything international markets. You were responsible. I'm talking about somebody like Hans-Peter Hagman, right? That really developed international markets. And really the international focus was accidental. Obviously, I always wanted our cigars to sell in European countries. I always wanted to compete tete-a-tete against Cuban cigars because I really thought that people would enjoy innovation in different blends and experiencing different things. So I kept telling Hans-Peter, look, I really do think that if an American tourist travels to Paris, I want him to see our product in Madrid and Barcelona. So it happened for us accidentally. So we were there when this whole movement started. I think social media helped kick it off a lot. And when you travel, you also begin to learn from other people and other countries and other cultures. And even each European country consumes product differently, sees it different. And the Germans, for example, are very, very technical in the way things are done. So because of the Germans, we draw test every single cigar in our production. From spending time in Sweden and other European countries, I realized that we're very wasteful the way we operate. So learning from the Europeans, we went ahead and we made our operations solar now. Our water is reverse osmosis, everything's processed. And now we're starting a whole system where it's rain collection. So we'll probably be using 70% of our water would be from rain collection. But it's always that innovation. It's something that I just can't sit still because I think we can always make things better. We can always make things better, and we learn from each other. I look at the things that Fred's doing with his company, and I say as a compliment, Fred, but I'm trying to copy and learn some things for you. Philip Philip really introduced alligator when I first started. I was 22 when I first met him. And like I said, in Jeremiah, what they've done with their tobacco and the relationship also with Carlos Fuente, I mean, listen, we can all keep learning from each
Clearly,
other.
Philip, when you started in the business, the industry looked drastically different from what it does today. In light of the most recent developments, the growth of both the US and the international markets, albeit based on different dynamics, different evolutions, how do you think that successful cigar companies and brands today need to build their strategy internationally in order to manage supply and demand and spread their wings in a way where they can be truthful and respectful to the various different customer bases and audiences that they have all around the world?
Well, I think Jeremiah put the touch on that. I think there is no successful company. There is successful individuals. We are all guardians of this wonderful world of tobacco. This is a mystical world, a world that we have brought the leaf from native populations. We have elaborated it. We've introduced it into new markets, and people enjoy smoking. And I've always said that cigar is the greatest equalizer in the world. We're witnessing horrible crimes and war now in Ukraine and in the Middle East. I'm sure if we could get all of these people around the table and put a cigar in their mouth, they would enjoy that moment, and there would be a dialogue that would come out of that. And I always believe that the cigar is that gateway. The American native populations used the calumet, they used the smoking peace pipe. There is something there. The Mayans used smoke to communicate with the gods. So in order to be a successful company, the individual has to have passion, has to love what he's doing, and has to believe in it. It is not a company that produces a cigar. Ultimately, it's always a man. It is the man that is watering the plant, that is growing, that is knowing when the time to prime. It is the man that has gone to different areas of the world to view where tobacco can be grown. It is a man that has picked the seeds like Christian's father did with the Corojo. It's a man that follows his family's tradition like Mr. Vandermarliere was saying. It's a man that has a conscience, which Jeremiah has. These are the ultimate promoters of the cigar business and the ultimate success of a cigar company. I believe that ultimately it is them and it is us that are entrusted with this legacy, which is an amazing legacy. Basically, that if that message comes through, that message is international. Everyone can understand that message. You don't have to be Chinese, American, British, Swiss, or whatever. You have to know that behind that cigar there is passion and that there's a man, and then automatically that will bring respect for the product and it will help the industry as a whole.
Jeremiah, I'm sure you can very much relate to that, looking back at your forefathers and the generation that came before you and shaped the industry. Your family's friendship with the Fuente family pretty much set the landscape for international cigar distribution, or introducing a very successful blend that was not a Cuban cigar into the international markets. And today, with your various operations and companies, from planting the seed into the rich soil of Cameroon all the way to sharing with cigar enthusiasts all over the world the fabulous creations that you take care of and that you have brought to light, you look at the entire spectrum and the whole value chain of tobacco and cigars. What is your perspective on where this industry is headed, and how the different growth dynamics, both in the US and internationally, will lead us to the next years in this fabulous business.
I think the next years are going to be tough for the industry in terms of maintaining quality and maintaining excellence. I believe that the demand for cigars today has exceeded the capacity of growing and sustaining manufacturing to a certain level. I don't speak for any one individual. I speak for the entirety of the industry as a whole. I strongly believe that we still have a few players that are willing and able to maintain a certain level of excellence. When I say willing and able, I mean that they have the ability and the resources to keep a certain level in terms of the qualities of the tobaccos that are being used, and the willingness not to increase production unreasonably, and maintain a level of output which is what they want to be putting their names on. But as a whole, I see a problem, and I see a danger, and I don't see this going well. We've seen it back in the 90s with the cigar boom. There was a decrease in quality on the markets, which was considerable. I think that today they're not going to be the same challenges. There's going to be slightly different ones, but those challenges risk lasting longer, because I don't see the peak of the consumption going up and down as quickly as the boom in the 90s. And again, I don't have a crystal ball. This is just my personal feeling. I think that the development of certain markets, particularly certain international markets, are going to maintain a certain level of demands, added to the enormous difficulties that the island of Cuba are having, producing and exporting cigars. And all of this shooken up is a Molotov cocktail, which I'm not happy to see. On the other hand, for everybody out there that, again, as I say, are willing and able, God bless you, because this is what's going to maintain a certain standard, and what is going to get us through this storm, a storm which a lot of people might benefit from, because obviously the demand is very, very high, and people might be purchasing things which are not at the level that they should be. But a storm nonetheless, because as far as I see it, any premium cigar which is not coming out at a certain level of quality, let's say, is a premium cigar, in my opinion. That is a pity.
Very important words there. Fred, is your outlook on the future of the premium cigar industry a very positive one, or do you also see certain question marks on the horizon? And then added to that, or as a second question, if I may, you have recently shown a very strong initiative to not only expand but broaden your reach and the various natures of your business, which I want to congratulate you for. And also, you have put a lot of time and energy into collaborating with other icons of the industry, and have proposed projects that truly champion that community aspect and how we can all come together. Could you briefly elaborate on that and how you see that tie in and fit into your overall strategy moving forward, please?
Again, 3 questions in one. Well done, Reinhard. Let's pick 2. One is the international, or let's say the future of the premium cigar industry. I mean, I do think that within the premium cigar industry, people learned from the boom. So people, I did not live it personally, but luckily, I mean, I have the luck to work together with the Olivas and with people within Oliva that lived the boom, and that surely remember what happened the moment that it really went wrong, and it was quality. And nowadays, I mean, yes, of course, I mean, the demand is bigger than the supply, and not having cigars is, in my opinion, something that in our industry continuously should be seen as a stamp of quality, even though it's always very difficult to sell a no. So yes, okay, everybody has its problems, but I have the feeling that everybody has issues as well to supply everything they can supply, and that shows for me. I mean, I'm maybe an optimist in general, but that shows to me a little bit more optimistic signs, where I think like, okay, I think in general they learned of it. Secondly, I think that we talked about the Cubans shortly. Yes, they have issues to supply. I think we can all congratulate them and thank them, I mean, on our knees, that they did choose the right route to live with that shortage. They could have done a lot of things, but the thing that they did is that they continued with their volume and they raised the prices. And the fact that things are in shortage, it's logical. I mean, that it's in shortage because it's difficult to make and because it's difficult to put your hands on the tobaccos that you need to have to make good cigars. So it's logical as well, in general, I mean, that the cost goes up, but that also the price goes up. And with them broadening that, I was frustrated in the past that you paid easily 15 euros or dollars for a gin tonic with not even an expensive gin, or for a glass of champagne with not the most expensive champagne, and that a cigar that was more than $20 was an expensive cigar. I mean, that's really, I mean, it's unfair towards everybody active in our industry that was the case. So, I mean, also the project that the Miraflores are bringing, but that a lot of boutique brands are doing. I mean, I'm very, very, I mean, embracing and very, very happy to see that, because I think it's really, it levels up and it brings things a little bit more in perspective as well for the end consumer, where if you explain to somebody what we need to do to make the product what it is, I think everybody is shocked how cheap it is. So so that's, let's say, another thing. And then on the quality as well, I fully align, because I often, when they talk about, vision, mission, whatever of your company, I often say, like, I mean, I want to have, when you talk to European banks, you have to avoid to use the word tobacco, otherwise they close your account, especially in Belgium. So I mean, and when I talk more and more about our industry, I say, like, okay, we're offering 1 hour of deconnection, I mean, of a moment that you put your phone away, that you don't have any connection with the world, and that you can pace down, in a world where the speed only goes up. It's very important, if we don't want to have more burnouts, that people really sit down and enjoy a cigar. I think it's Rocky often who says, like, if the world leaders would smoke cigars, the problems wouldn't be so big. And I think there is a form of truth in that. So all these things gathered together, that quality is crucial. I think that everybody industry embraces that, I mean, as much as they can. And I believe, I mean, that in general, the quality level now, even we're at a little peak, is higher, I don't know, very difficult to measure, than in 99, for example. So therefore, I'm a little bit more positive, but we have to stay careful and make sure that we don't do crazy things there. Now, second part of your question was, let's say, the collaborations that we did with different families, amongst others, Christian's family, and we're very proud and happy to do that as well, but with other people as well in the industry. Look, I'm a spoiled little kid, I mean, who has the opportunity to continue what his family was doing, but we were not active in that premium side of the market. I still remember my first RTDA, it was still, where I walked around. I didn't know anybody, and I went to these big booths. I mean, feeling how these people welcomed me shows also what a warm industry we are. I mean, there is a little Belgian coming into that industry. I mean, what will he do, and blah, blah. I mean, anyhow, everybody saw it first positive and then only negative, if it would be. And therefore, I think it's very important. One, I mean, I'm very thankful for that. But two, also, I mean, very important for me is, like, we cannot forget where we come from. And if you think about all the Cuban families that went out of Cuba and that really started from scratch, yes, I mean, not everything is Cuban. I mean, Philip's example is also a perfect one of somebody, maybe not with the grounds or with these connections, that still made a fantastic story. But I think that thinking about these moments where people lost everything, that everything was confiscated, and that everybody had to start from zero again to start making cigars. It's also, I mean, for me, it's a little lesson that hopefully everybody, I mean, that as much as possible we can pass to people as well. It's very logical that very good cigars come now from Nicaragua, Honduras, Dominican, but this wasn't at all the case, you know, I mean, in the 60s. And when you imagine that these people flew with zero money in their pocket, with nothing, like Gilberto Senior Oliva, flew out of the country, looked for land, started growing from zero, and then started making cigars. My God, who am I? You know, I mean, so the only thing that we can do is try to make sure that people remember about this, and that's also one of the reasons, not the main, but okay, one of the reasons that we like to put that, to enlighten that, and yeah, to have the honor to work with people and families like that.
Mm-hmm. Fred, many thanks for so eloquently and elegantly gliding through my loaded and heavy question. And even if there's multiple ones simultaneously, I do apologize. But we're pushed for time, and I'm trying to get as much.
It's your quality, right? It's your quality.
Our global audience as possible. Speaking of time, we want to be respectful of everybody's time, and I know that we're already running over time. But Christian, I would love to give the word to you for a final statement, and please make it a brief one. But in light of the collaborative efforts that Fred just mentioned and everything we discussed on this wonderful panel, leave us with a call to action or with your thoughts, please, as to what we can all do better to connect globally, to share resources, to support each other, and to truly build viable international markets.
Beautiful, thank you. You know, I think everything's kind of connected. So I'm very optimistic with the market. You know, there's a world of difference between today's boom and what we had in the 90s. First of all, we have about 7-8 different hybrid seeds that many people grow, and the quality of cigars is much better. And the one thing I do like seeing from the international markets, and the call to action would be experiment different cigars, try different cigars. You know, I know you probably said on something you've been smoking for X amount of years, but try something new, because behind those cigars you see at the store is an independent shop owner who put all his or her money into that business, small business, and there's also a distributor, importer in that country who also took a risk. And it'll be real great of you to really help and contribute to that experience, because, and you have to trust that he or she picked the product that you will enjoy. So have fun, enjoy the cigars. I'm telling you, a lot of work, a lot of investment, a lot of time, a lot of experience has gone into this. Now you have three generations outside of Cuba that are developing these new industries, and we've done a really, really good job. And you'll be hard pressed to find a bad cigar from any of us or anybody else out there competing in these new markets. So have fun, man, and just experiment. Try as many new cigars as you can. You'll make it a point to always try something new when you visit your shop.
Christian A. Roa, Fred Vandermelier, Jeremiah Maripol, and Philip Wynn, thank you all from heart for your wonderful answers and for participating in this panel. It's a privilege to share this moment with you. And thank you very much for everything that you do and for the most heartfelt and most passionate efforts that you and your forefathers, your families have put into this exceptional industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congrats with what you do, Reinhard.